Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Today I thought I would do something a bit different. We are going to be baking, so I'm going to make a simple Victoria loaf, if you will. So it's literally just a vanilla cake. So the first thing that you're going to do is get your scales and your mixing bowl, and then some butter. I say butter, I use stork for pretty much all of my baking. So you need to measure out 175 grams of stork or your preferred alternative. I had a bit of the soft spread one left, so I used some of that, and then just a normal block is fine. You're going to be using a whisk, so it doesn't matter too much if it's a bit hard, although obviously if you're doing it by hand or without a hand mixer, then I'd advise you take it out and let it soften up for a bit before using it in your cake.
I keep a photograph in which we were in love, caught in your eyes.
Okay, so next you need to grab your sugar. I use granulated sugar. You can use caster sugar or granulated sugar. In my experience, it doesn't really make much of a difference. But again, you need another 175 grams of this. Typically, my measurements tend to go either way. So sometimes it's a little bit more, sometimes it's a little bit less. I think generally, as long as you're within 5 grams of your kind of target, then that's fine. Then I'm gonna, this is me adjusting my sugar because I'd gone way over. So it's relatively easy. It's common sense really, in terms of the measurements. Then I'm gonna put in a teaspoon of baking powder. So I know some people when they do their baking recipes, they mix up the butter and the sugar first and then add the other ingredients. I tend to do the method of just throw it all in and then mix it all together. And that generally has always worked out pretty well for me. Next it's going to be the flour. So again, this is another 175 grams. I will write a list of all the ingredients and the amount of each ingredient that you need in the description box below, so you're always welcome to just drop below and check that out. Don't expect you to just remember everything, although this is a relatively easy recipe. I should probably mention as well that I typically don't preheat my oven. I know a lot of people do, but I just put my cake in for an extra 5 minutes, as opposed to preheating it before I do everything. But if you prefer to preheat it, that's also fine. This recipe uses 3 large eggs. I only ever have medium eggs. It's never really been a problem. I don't bother whisking them beforehand either, which I know is a big thing that a lot of people like to do. One of my eggs fell out of the little bowl that we have that keep them all in and cracked all over the side, so that was useful. And that's another tip: if you have finished your carton or your foil or something for your butter, if you just put your egg shells in them, it just keeps it from being really, really messy all over the side. So that's what I've done there. Now I'm going to go ahead and just put in a dash of vanilla essence. I don't measure this out, I just kind of do it by feeling. Obviously I think the recommended, I think it's a couple of drops. I don't really even know, I just kind of go with what I think is right. I'm now going to go ahead and just quickly kind of mix in everything with a spatula. I will be using a hand whisk to do most of the work, but just to kind of zhuzh it all together. And yeah, off we go with the hand whisk. If you don't have a normal whisk, you can use a spatula. I prefer them to actual normal whisks. I feel like they're easier to use. They're quite good for smoothing the butter down as you go. There's no set time limit for how long you're going to whisk this for. Just whisk it until it looks good, basically. And it can help to turn the bowl instead of the whisk. So yeah, that's a good tip.
Waiting for the sunrise. I barely even knew who you were. What did you do? I didn't care, 'cause you were perfect.
So once you've kind of creamed everything up with the mixer, I'm going to go back in with the spatula and just kind of make sure that there are no lumps. If there's any bits I've missed, then I'm just going to mix them all in.
I remember fleeting times when we slept on top of cars. Now I don't know you don't know me too. I remember fleeting times when we watched the sparks.
So I've got my loaf tin now. I picked this up in Morrison's for I think £2 or something like that. And then I'm going to use some non-stick grease-proof paper just to line it. I don't line the whole pan. So what I'll do is just rip a strip off and then insert that like this, because it's relatively easy to get a knife down the sides of the loaf tin. It's a bit more difficult to get the bottom off, so as long as the bottom is pretty much covered, it shouldn't make that much a difference. And now I'm just going to go ahead and pour the batter in.
I don't know you don't know me too. I remember fleeting times when we watched the sparks so far. Now I don't know you don't know me too. When you will be forever young. Now I don't know you don't know me too. I knew that love would never die. Now everybody's on their own. If I could see.
Okay, so you're going to put your cake in the oven for 45 minutes to start with, and then you can kind of increase it if and when, like depending on how well you like it done. And here it is, the finished product. So I left this in for 50 minutes in total. And yeah, so here I'm just going to kind of score down the sides with the knife just to make sure the sides are loose when I pull it out with the greaseproof paper. Obviously, because I'm filming, I struggled with this greatly, but it was relatively easy to just pull out and then plump on the drying rack, and then you can just pull the sides of the greaseproof paper down, and then yeah, you're pretty much done. So I hope you've enjoyed this little tutorial. The details are below, and I'll see you next time.